My name is Erin Calloway. 5 years ago, 3 days before Thanksgiving, my phone lit up with my mother's name, and before I could even say hello, she said 7 words that cut through everything I thought I understood about family. Don't come home this year. Abby doesn't want drama. There was no hesitation, no apology. Just the sound of someone closing a door that had been barely open my whole life. I remember standing there, staring at the wall. Realizing she didn't call to talk, she called to erase me. I asked her what she meant, still holding the phone like it might explain itself. But she only sighed. That tired tone she used when she wanted to make me feel unreasonable. You know how you get. Erin, your sister's pregnant again. She doesn't need stress. I laughed. Small and sharp. What stress? I haven't spoken to her in months. Mom's reply came cold. Exactly. Let's keep it that way. It was the way she said, we, as if the family had voted and I'd lost by default. My chest felt hollow. I told her I'd already bought my ticket. Then get a refund, she said. The line went dead, and that silence said everything she never would. I stood there with the phone still pressed to my ear, waiting for the sting to fade. But it didn't. The air felt heavy, like even the room knew something irreversible had just happened. People say you know the moment your family stops seeing you as one of them. I didn't know until I heard the click that ended the call. That was the night I stopped trying to be invited home. That was the night I understood what it meant to be the family's acceptable absence. Before I tell you what came next, remember this. When someone calls you drama, it's usually because your silence once made them comfortable. And your truth doesn't anymore. Thanksgiving night in Boston felt like a movie that forgot its soundtrack. I walked into Harborview Grill because it was the only place still open. The kind that smelled like butter and old wood. The hostess asked, "Just one tonight?" And I said yes, like I'd practiced it. She led me to a corner table pressed against a family big enough to fill 3. Their laughter was steady, layered, familiar. The kind of noise that made silence feel heavier. I ordered the Thanksgiving special, mostly to have something to do with my hands. The man at the head of their table told a story about burning the turkey years ago. The whole group burst out laughing. I kept my eyes on the glass of water, pretending to read the menu. Then, a woman's voice beside me said softly, "Honey, are you okay?" I looked up to see her silver hair, eyes that noticed too much. "I'm fine," I said. And she smiled like someone who'd already heard that lie too many times. "No one should eat alone today. Come join us." I shook my head quickly, trying to sound polite. "You don't have to," she interrupted. "I know, but I want to." Her husband waved from the table. She won't take no for an answer. Their son grinned. "Trust me. It's easier just to agree." I glanced at my untouched plate. Then, at their crowded table with room that somehow appeared out of nowhere. "Okay," I said quietly, standing before I could change my mind. The woman's name was Charlotte Morrison. "Good," she said. "We just opened another bottle of wine. If you can to." They welcomed me like I'd always belonged there. Her husband Paul handed me a plate. Their son Ryan poured the wine. And Charlotte laughed when I tried to insist I wasn't hungry. Someone cracked a joke about the turkey being too dry. And I laughed for the first time all day. Charlotte leaned toward me, her voice low but firm. "You can't fix a family that enjoys breaking you." I looked at her, unsure how she knew. And she added, "But you can build something better." The line wasn't advice, it was an observation drawn from the evidence sitting right in front of me. One empty chair, now filled. Charlotte called a week later, her voice calm and certain, asking if I liked Sunday dinners. I hesitated, pretending to check my schedule. But she saw through it instantly. You don't need a reason to come, she said. You just need an appetite. I laughed, half nervous, half flattered, and promised to think about it. By the third call, she didn't ask again. She just said, 4 o'clock. We'll save you a seat. The Morrison house felt like a place where doors stayed unlocked. Paul greeted me with a quiet smile. Ryan teased his mother for overcooking the roast. And Charlotte introduced me as our friend who doesn't like small talk. It was disarming, being included without earning it first. Ryan passed me a dish and asked what I did for work. I told him I managed a few apartment buildings around the city. So you're the person everyone calls when the heat breaks at midnight? He said. And I smiled. Pretty much. And somehow, they think I can fix it with kindness. Charlotte laughed. That's a dangerous skill. Over dinner, the conversation moved like a current that carried everyone equally. They interrupted each other freely, argued about who made the best cornbread, and no one raised their voice. It was the kind of ordinary chaos that made me ache. Charlotte leaned closer, lowering her tone. What did your family call you when you disagreed with them? I said softly. Drama. Trouble. The usual words used to silence a woman. She nodded, cutting her steak slowly. Then stop being silent. It wasn't advice. It was a mirror held steady enough for me to see myself clearly. When I left that night, she handed me a small container of pie wrapped in foil. Tradition, she said. No one leaves empty-handed. As I walked home, I realized the dinner had shifted something quiet but structural inside me. Their table didn't feel borrowed, it felt earned. The proof was simple. No one asked me to shrink, apologize, or explain why I was there. I didn't know it yet. But I'd just found the first place where my presence wasn't negotiable. 2 years after that first dinner, Ryan and I were sitting in the Morrison living room surrounded by fabric swatches and catering menus, trying to plan a wedding that felt simple but real. Charlotte smiled at me over her glasses and said, You've picked a venue, a dress, even a menu. But there's one thing you still haven't decided whose names will go on the invitation. I looked down, pretending to focus on the color chart. But the words sat heavy between us. I can't put theirs, I said finally. They haven't spoken to me in years. She nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time to put ours. 2-9. I thought she was joking until she handed me a folder stamped with the state seal. Adult adoption, she explained, her tone steady, like this was the most natural next step in the world. It's legal here. It means what we already know, that family can be chosen. I stared at the papers, my throat tightening. You'd really want me as your daughter? On paper? She smiled. Small, but certain. You already are. The law just needs to catch up. Paul, from his chair, said gently. We've had a daughter all along. We just didn't know her name until that Thanksgiving. It wasn't sentiment, it was fact. Documented in kindness. The process took months. Background checks, signatures, court dates. Each step felt strangely ceremonial, like unwrapping years of loneliness in reverse. When the judge finally signed the order, Charlotte squeezed my hand and whispered, Welcome home, Aaron Morrison. I didn't cry until I saw the new birth certificate, new last name. Same birthday. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a record of survival. It felt like proof of arrival. Ryan leaned in, saying quietly, Guess that makes me the guy dating the lawyer's daughter. I laughed, and Charlotte replied, Be careful. We set the bar high. That night, at dinner, she raised her glass and said, To second chances that don't need permission. I met her eyes, understanding what she meant before she said it. The evidence was right there, my new name. the empty space it filled, and the family who had signed their love in ink. I wasn't a guest anymore. I was theirs. Legally, deliberately, permanently. 3 months before the wedding, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years. I let it ring until it stopped. But the silence that followed was louder. The next day, the doorbell broke it. When I opened the door, my mother stood there holding her purse like she owned the place. "You're really going through with this?" she said. "Getting married without your family?" I leaned against the frame. "I am. With my family." Her eyes scanned the apartment until they landed on the framed photo of the Morrisons at Christmas. "So you replaced us?" she said flatly. "No," I answered. "I replaced the space where you left me." She stepped inside without asking, the air shifting like it used to whenever she decided boundaries were optional. "That's not fair," she said. "We made mistakes. But you don't get to erase us." I folded my arms. "You told me not to come home." "You called that peace?" "I called it exile." Her voice sharpened. "Abby was pregnant. We were protecting her." "From what? My existence?" I asked. She looked away. The same move she used when she couldn't win an argument, but refused to lose it either. "You always twist everything," she said. "You make yourself the victim." "No," I said. "I just stopped volunteering for the role." "Doc." Her eyes darted toward the engagement ring on my hand. "Does he know what you're really like?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "That's why he's marrying me." She flinched but recovered quickly. "We deserve an invitation," she said. "We're still your parents." I shook my head. "You can't skip 5 years and expect a seat at my table." Her tone softened, the way it always did when she wanted something. "Aaron, don't do this. People will talk." I smiled faintly. "They'll talk anyway. I just learned to stop listening." She stared at me. Maybe waiting for the guilt that used to come so easily. It didn't. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "Maybe," I replied. "But at least it'll be my decision." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I walked to the door and held it open. "Goodbye, Mom." The word felt clean, not bitter. When the door closed behind her, I realized the visit hadn't reopened an old wound. It had confirmed it had already healed. The wedding day unfolded under a sky so clear it felt deliberate. The vineyard shimmered in June light, rows of vines stretching like an invitation. Ryan straightened his tie and whispered, "Ready?" I nodded, though ready wasn't the word. When the music started, Paul took my arm and said quietly, "Let's show them what family looks like." His voice steadied me more than the aisle ever could. The ceremony was simple, almost quiet, and every word felt earned. When the officiant asked who was presenting the bride, Paul answered, "Her parents, Paul and Charlotte Morrison." The crowd applauded. And somewhere in the back, 2 familiar figures stiffened. I didn't need to look to know it was them. Ryan met my eyes as if asking silently if I wanted to stop. But I didn't. "We continue," I said under my breath. And he smiled. By the time we said our vows, I'd stopped shaking. When the officiant declared us husband and wife, the applause felt like a closing argument that required no rebuttal. At the reception, laughter rose against the music until a guard approached me quietly. "Mrs. Morrison," he said. "2 guests at the gate claim to be your parents." Ryan tensed beside me. "Do you want them removed?" he asked. "No," I said. "Seat them in the back." He frowned, but he didn't argue. When they entered, their eyes scanned the crowd as if searching for the right version of the past. They stopped when they saw Charlotte, radiant and calm, taking her seat at the head table. The MC's voice carried through the room. Please welcome the parents of the bride, Paul and Charlotte Morrison. Applause erupted again. My mother's face blanched. My father's shoulders sagged like someone realizing the ending had already been written. She reached me first, voice trembling. What is this? She hissed. Who are those people? I looked at her evenly. My legal parents. She blinked. You can't just replace us, I said. I didn't replace you. I just stopped waiting to be chosen. My father's eyes filled with regret. But I didn't let him speak. I wanted a family that showed up, I said softly. And they did. Charlotte joined us then. Her tone measured. It's time for you to leave. My mother's lips tightened. You'll regret humiliating us like this. No, I said. I already regretted giving you every chance to stay. Ah. As they were escorted out, Paul raised his glass and said loud enough for the room to hear. To Erin Morrison, our daughter in every way that counts. The guests cheered. Unaware of the quiet war that had just ended, I looked around the room, at the name printed on every place card, on every program, on the small tag tied to each glass Morrison. It wasn't decoration. It was evidence. The morning after the wedding, my phone buzzed with messages from numbers I hadn't saved in years. Cousins. Aunts. People who'd stayed quiet when silence was convenient. One text read, "You didn't have to humiliate them." Another said, "Family is family. No matter what." I deleted them all without opening the rest. By evening, one message remained unread, a letter from my sister Abby, slipped into our mailbox with my new last name printed neatly on the envelope. I opened it out of curiosity. Not hope. Mom's devastated. It began. Dad hasn't been the same. You always made things difficult. But I never wanted this. I stopped reading halfway through, the words flattening into the same rhythm of self-defense I'd grown up hearing. When Ryan walked in, he asked. Something wrong? I said. Just a reminder of why I stopped explaining myself. He nodded. Then don't start again. I folded the letter once and set it in a drawer. It didn't deserve fire or ceremony, just closure. That night, I sat outside on the porch, the air still warm from the day before. Charlotte joined me with 2 mugs of tea and said, "Any word from them?" I smiled faintly. A letter pretending to be an apology. She tilted her head. Do you feel anything reading it? I thought about it. Relief, I said. Not because they're sorry, but because I don't need them to be. She placed her hand over mine and said, Then that's peace. Not forgiveness forced to look polite, but peace that doesn't require witnesses. 2. The next Sunday. Their table was as full as ever, Paul carving roast, Ryan arguing about football, Charlotte laughing at both of them. She poured me another glass of wine and said, To family? I raised mine. To the ones who stayed. As we ate, I caught my reflection in the window, surrounded by people who showed up. The evidence was simple. No empty chairs. No apologies owed. Just presence. I used to think peace meant being accepted by those who hurt me. Now I knew it meant living so fully that their absence didn't echo anymore. Thank you for staying with me until the end of my story. If it found a place in you, leave a comment and tell me what family means in your world. Your words might reach someone who needs them tonight. And if you can, share it. Someone out there is still waiting to be chosen.